Good morning, you're watching AnewZ. I'm Dilek Tuna. Here are the top stories. Houthis released the footage of ECHR ship sinking in the Red Sea. US President Donald Trump has said he considers sending patriot missiles to Ukraine. The European Court of Human Rights rules Russia violated international law in Ukraine and is responsible for the downing of Malaysian Airlines flight MH17. A surge in attacks in the Red Sea has left one cargo ship sunk, another damaged, and several crew members dead or missing. The ECHR was hit with missiles and sea drones before sinking off Yemen's coast. The United Nations Security Council say they agree on the importance of avoiding a deeper regional crisis.
Yemen's Houthi forces have claimed responsibility for sinking the Greek-operated, Liberian-flagged cargo vessel ECHR, in which 4 people died and 14 remain missing. 7 were rescued out of a 22-member crew and a security team of 3 after spending more than 24 hours in the sea. Houthi forces released dramatic footage of what they claim to be the ship before it slipped beneath the surface, leaving behind a slick of oil and debris. They say the vessel had violated a ban on dealings with Israeli ports and ignored repeated warnings. Their spokesman said the attack involved an unmanned boat and 6 missiles. He also claimed their naval unit had rescued some crew members and taken them to safety, though this could not be independently verified.
The Yemeni armed forces affirm they will continue to prevent Israeli navigation in the Red Sea and the Arabian Sea. They renew their warning to all companies dealing with the ports of occupied Palestine that their ships and crews will be targeted in any area within the reach of the armed forces, regardless of the ship's destination.
The vessel was attacked with sea drones and rockets fired from speedboats on Monday and Tuesday, reportedly by Houthi forces. Lifeboats were destroyed, leaving the crew vulnerable. By Wednesday morning, the ship had sunk southwest of Yemen's Hodeidah port. Greek maritime security firm Diaplos, involved in the rescue, released footage showing the survivors being pulled from the water. ECHR is the second ship attacked this week by the Iran-aligned group after a 7-month-long lull in hostilities. The attack on the Magic Seas on the 6th of July also resulted in the ship sinking, but all crew were rescued. The United Nations Special Envoy to Yemen, Hans Grunberg, warned the Security Council of growing military escalation, including Israeli strikes on Yemeni ports in response.
Yemen must not be drawn deeper into regional crises that threaten to unravel the already extremely fragile situation in the country. The stakes for Yemen are simply too high, and I recognize that for some, on both sides of the conflict, the appetite for a military escalation remains. A military solution, however, remains a dangerous illusion that risks deepening Yemen's suffering.
This comes as Hamas has agreed to release 10 captives in Gaza after talks in Qatar between Israel and Hamas have stalled for a ceasefire. More than 70 people in Gaza were killed on Wednesday.
Hopes for a Gaza ceasefire are fading as Israel and Hamas have hit a fresh impasse after days of talks in Doha. For more on that, we go to Tel Aviv and our Trent Murray.
Well, despite cautious optimism earlier in the week that Israel and Hamas may have been close to agreeing to a ceasefire, that optimism now seems to be abating as both sides appear once again to be at an impasse after 5 days of negotiations in the Qatari capital, Doha. Now, we understand that the basic framework for a temporary ceasefire is there. That basic framework includes a temporary 60-day cease to hostilities, with Israel withdrawing from key military positions within the Gaza Strip. In exchange, Hamas willing to hand over 10 Israeli living hostages, as well as the bodies of 18 deceased ones. But that is where things stand right now, and we understand both sides are having concerns about what happens after that 60 days ends. Hamas would like to see Israel withdraw completely from the Gaza Strip, but the Israeli position is that they want to maintain some sort of security still within Gaza in order to prevent Hamas rearming. Now, we got some clues potentially into where things stand right now. Earlier today, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, speaking on Fox Business News, said he thinks that there is a good chance that there will be a ceasefire, but he acknowledged the main sticking point is the deployment of IDF troops after the 60 days comes to an end. We also heard, though, from the country's foreign minister, Gideon Zar, who is visiting Slovakia. Now, he has said that Israel is willing, after a temporary ceasefire is agreed, to negotiate a permanent one, but he also said that Hamas is holding 50 Israeli hostages and that the entire war can end tomorrow if those hostages are handed over and Hamas lays down its weapons. So while those negotiations are taking place, of course, both publicly in the media in some ways, but also privately in Doha, what we are seeing in Gaza is that the IDF is actually looking to increase the tempo of its military operations. We've heard in the past few hours that they have said they are placing additional troops into an area around Beit Hanun in the very north of the Gaza Strip, near the northern border fence. They say they are doing that after 5 Israeli soldiers were killed by a roadside bomb planted by Hamas, 14 others injured. The IDF position is that they believe large numbers of Hamas militants are holed up in tunnels there, and they're sending in additional troops to the area with an expected increase in fighting to come. Trent Murray for AnewZ, Tel Aviv.
The Israeli military says it intercepted a missile launched from Yemen, triggering air raid sirens in Tel Aviv. The Houthi group, which controls the most populous areas of Yemen, has been targeting Israel and attacking shipping lanes. Most of the dozens of missiles and drones launched by the Houthis have either been intercepted or fallen short. The Houthis say their attacks are acts of solidarity with Palestinians in Gaza. US President Donald Trump has said he will consider sending Patriot missiles to Ukraine, just days after the United States suspended arms deliveries over concerns about depleting its own stockpile. Trump said the US would provide more weapons to Ukraine, primarily defensive, to help the war-torn country fend off intensifying Russian advances. His comments come as Russia launched its largest aerial assault on Ukraine to date on Tuesday night, firing 728 drones and 13 missiles in a nationwide overnight attack, according to Ukrainian authorities.
They would like it. They've asked for it. They're very rare indeed, because a lot of systems have been sent to Ukraine. But they would like to. I know they made the request. We're going to have to take a look at it.
In a significant ruling, Europe's top human rights court has held Russia responsible for the downing of Malaysia Airlines flight MH17, which killed all 298 people on board. The court also declared that Moscow systematically violated international law in Ukraine since 2022.
Russia is directly responsible for the downing of Malaysia Airlines flight MH17, according to a unanimous ruling at Europe's top human rights court in Strasbourg. It marks the first time an international court has held Moscow accountable for the July 2014 tragedy that killed 298 people when it was shot down over eastern Ukraine, calling it a grave breach of international law. The court also says that Moscow failed to properly investigate the tragedy, withheld vital information, and inflicted further pain on the victims' families through years of denial.
The flight MH17 was fired by a member of the Russian military crew of the Buck-Taylor or by a member of the DPR. It was not necessary for the court to decide exactly who fired the missile, since Russia was responsible for the acts of the Russian armed force and of the armed separatists.
The court went further, saying that Russia has carried out systematic human rights violations across Ukraine, including indiscriminate attacks on civilians, summary executions, forced displacement, torture used as a weapon of war. The ruling also addressed that those rights violations are tied to the start of Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine in 2022. However, Moscow continues to deny responsibility for MH17 and claims it had no military presence in Ukraine in 2014.
Finland and Lithuania are set to start production of anti-personnel landmines next year following their exit from the international treaty banning their use and manufacturing. The decision follows a wave of parliamentary votes across Eastern Europe, with Poland, Latvia and Estonia set to withdraw from the Ottawa Convention.
In a historic shift, Finland and Lithuania are set to start producing anti-personnel mines. They say it's to supply themselves and Ukraine because of what they say is a military threat from Russia. The two countries that border Russia will be withdrawing from the 1997 Ottawa Convention, which bans these types of weapons. The Lithuanian Defence Minister says production could be launched once the 6-month withdrawal process is completed.
We are planning to acquire different sorts, different types of mines. Anti-tank are especially important. Looking at the Russian tactics, how we're using, but also anti-personnel mines, because Russian tactics means that we use live force in very, so to say, forceful and then quite efficient manner.
3 other NATO and European Union states, Poland, Latvia and Estonia, are also quitting the treaty, but they've not yet announced plans to start producing anti-personnel mines. Poland's defence minister says the country can't be left without a defence.
I ask for a unified vote to vote for withdrawal from the Ottawa Convention on the use of anti-personnel mines. This is our motion combined with the decision of our partners from the Baltic countries and Finland. Poland cannot be included in any straitjacket that prevents defence.
The 5 NATO countries say they will not create minefields in peacetime, but will store the mines for swift deployment if they feel threatened. They say they regard such munitions as a deterrence. However, anti-mine campaigners have criticised them for leaving the Ottawa Convention and say that reintroducing anti-personnel mine production could be expensive and take a long time to fully operational.
Georgia's Prime Minister hosted Uzbekistan's Foreign Minister in Tbilisi to boost cooperation on trade, tourism and the strategic Middle Corridor. Nina Nikolashvili reports from Tbilisi.
Georgian Prime Minister Irakli Kobakhidze met with Uzbek Foreign Minister Bakhtiar Saidov on July 8 in Tbilisi, the latest in the string of diplomatic efforts to strengthen ties between the two countries. The focus was on deepening economic cooperation with a particular attention to trade, tourism and connectivity projects. At the attention of the discussion was the Middle Corridor, an east-west transport route that bypasses Russia and connects Asia with Europe. With shifting global supply chains and geopolitical tensions, this corridor is gaining strategic weight. Georgia's geographic position gives it a key role, and according to the political expert Tornike Sharashanidze, this role carries even more weight for Georgia than for others in the region. The Middle Corridor is crucial for Georgia because Georgia does not have natural resources or wealth, so it is trying to use its geography and its own resources to the maximum in order to become the regional hub. Cooperation with both neighboring countries and the Central Asian states, including Uzbekistan, is necessary. The relations with China should also be considered so Georgia can receive as much economic benefit as possible. This will ultimately not only boost the economy but will also strengthen Georgia's security because the more useful small country is for major players, the more stable its position becomes, he said to AnewZ. This meeting signals growing momentum in Georgia-Uzbekistan ties and reflects a wider push by Tbilisi to turn its strategic geography into long-term economic and political values. It's Nini Nikolashvili reporting from Tbilisi, AnewZ.
Afghanistan's Taliban authorities have flatly rejected arrest warrants issued by the International Criminal Court for 2 of its senior officials, accused of crimes against humanity and systematically persecuting women and girls since seizing power in August 2021. Tamim Bahis has more from Kabul.
The International Criminal Court has issued arrest warrants for 2 of Afghanistan's most senior leaders, Habatullah Khundzada, the country's supreme leader, and Abdulhakim Akani as Chief Justice. The ICC says there are reasonable grounds to believe The two men are responsible for crime against humanity since August 2021. The charges focus on gender and political-based persecution, including systematic violations of the rights of women and girls and those who opposed the country's gender policies. In a swift response, spokesperson Zabiullah Mujahid rejected the ICC's authority, stating that Afghanistan does not recognize the code. He accused the ICC of double standards, citing what he called genocide in Gaza that continues unpunished. Mujahid said labeling Islamic Sharia law as unjust or oppressive is a direct insult to Muslim beliefs and an act of hostility toward Islam itself. The ICC says the warrants remain sealed to protect witnesses and victims, but made their existence public to help prevent further crimes. It has reaffirmed its calls for the arrest of Afghanistan's top leaders. Afghanistan's leadership maintains it is not bound by the Rome Statute, the treaty that established the codes. This is Tamim Bahis in Kabul for AnewZ.
Ankara has been selected as the tourism capital of the Turkic world for 2026. The decision was made at the 10th meeting of tourism ministers from the Organization of Turkic States, held in Ankara. Turkish Culture Minister Mehmet Nuri Ersoy said the title reflects the city's rich history, culture and its growing role in regional cooperation. A meeting between the President of the Republic of Azerbaijan, Ilham Aliyev, and the Prime Minister of the Republic of Armenia, Nikol Pashinyan, has started in the city of Abu Dhabi, United Arab Emirates. The talks aim to work on finalising a peace agreement. Officials from both sides said in March 2025 that they had agreed to the text of a comprehensive peace deal. Aliyev and Pashinyan last met in May this year on the sidelines of the European Political Community Summit in Albania. A group of international travellers has set out on a unique journey to one of Azerbaijan's legendary industrial landmarks, oil rocks, the world's first offshore oil platform. Here's our special report from the Caspian Sea.
Aboard Garagara vessel heading toward one of the most iconic and mysterious destinations in Caspian Sea, the world's first offshore oil platform, the oil rocks.
Located nearly 40 kilometers off the Azerbaijani coast, Oil Rocks was once a marvel of Soviet engineering. Built in 1949, it marked the beginning of offshore drilling as we know it.
This journey is a part of MTP Travelers Group program, which bringing 30 people from 14 countries.
For many of these explorers, it's their first time in Azerbaijan and their first encounter with a floating city powered by steel, oil and stories of resilience.
Oil Rocks is quite an interesting place. Someplace it's like I've never seen before, and I've had a good time so far. I've really enjoyed, we went into the museum, and each one of the stops that we went to, each one of the monuments, we were given a good 3 to 5 minutes worth of information, and it was very helpful.
I mean, I generally understood where oil came from and everything, but it's so cool to come out and see it and, actually get to see where people are staying and kind of how it's all done.
Once a groundbreaking feat of offshore construction, Oil Rocks today is a time capsule, a place where history, industry and the open sea converge for travelers. It's a rare opportunity to step into a place that shaped the modern oil era, yet reminds of the radar of conventional tourism.
With rusted pipelines, endless bridges, and the smell of sea and fuel in the air, the platform tells a story that few get to witness firsthand.
Yeah, so the oil rocks, I had been here once before in 2021, and in my understanding, it's only the third time for tourists to come in like this. So I'm very happy to be here. It's impressive. It's very large.
Yeah, well, it's really cool seeing like the first offshore oil pump in the world. So a very unique experience. And I understand not many tourists get to go here, so very lucky that we were able to.
In the middle of the Caspian, far from the usual postcard views, Oil Rocks continues to echo the pulse of Azerbaijan's oil legacy, now through the eyes of a new generation of global travellers.
These are the updates from Baku this morning. Stay tuned to AnewZ for more updates.